You cannot fight a fire by throwing more fire on it, but that is what most men do to their own mind. A bad thought shows up. They argue about it. They yell back at it inside their own head, and somehow, by the end of the night, that one small thought has burned through their sleep, their mood, and their whole next day. You have tried to think your way out of a dark thought before. You know it does not work. The harder you push it down, the harder it pushes back. It is like holding a beach ball under water. The second your grip slips, even a little, it explodes back to the surface with more force than before. This is not a weakness. This is how the mind is built. And almost no one ever teaches men how it actually works. Think about the last argument that stayed with you for days. Not the one with the person. The one that kept happening inside your head, long after the real conversation ended. You replayed your lines. You rewrote what you should have said. You lost sleep over a fight that, in real life, lasted maybe 2 minutes. That is not a memory. That is a loop. And a loop like that can run for years if nobody ever teaches you how to shut it off. Most men try to shut it off the wrong way. They distract themselves. They numb it with noise, with scrolling, with staying busy enough that the thought cannot catch up to them. It works for an hour, maybe a night. Then the loop is right back where it left off, waiting for the first quiet moment to start again. There was a group of men who figured this out over 2,000 years ago, not in a library, not in a classroom, in prison cells, in exile, in the middle of running an empire while enemies waited outside the gate. They did not have therapy. They did not have peaceful mornings. Some of them had far less peace than you have right now, and they still found a way to think clearly when everything around them was falling apart. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how they did it. Not theory, not vague advice about staying positive. A real method for taking control of a mind that has been running wild for years. Stay with me, because lesson number 4 is the one that changes how you see every argument, every insult, and every bad day you have ever had. Here is the part nobody tells you. Your thoughts are not really the problem. The problem is that you believe every single one of them the moment they show up. A thought enters your head, and within half a second, you have already treated it like a fact, like a verdict, like something written in stone. But a thought is not a fact. A thought is a guess, and most of your guesses were built a long time ago, during moments you do not even remember clearly. A harsh word from a parent, a moment you got laughed at, a time you tried and failed in front of people who mattered to you. Your mind took that pain and turned it into a rule, and that rule has been running your life quietly ever since. This is where the old thinkers come in, not with soft advice, with a system. They believed something most people still refuse to accept today. It is not the world that disturbs you, it is the meaning you attach to the world. 2 men can lose the same job. One collapses. One sees it as the push he needed. Same event. 2 completely different lives, starting from that exact moment. Let me prove it to you. His name does not matter for now, so picture him as any man you know. He is standing in a hallway outside a boardroom. He has just been passed over for a promotion he worked 3 years to earn. For about 10 seconds, his mind runs wild. He is not good enough. He never was. Everyone in that room probably laughed at him behind his back. His whole career is a joke. 10 seconds. That is all it takes for a mind trained on reaction to build an entire false story out of one piece of bad news. But this time, something different happens. He catches himself. He remembers a simple line he read once, from a man who once ruled the most powerful empire on earth and still found time to write letters to himself at night. The line was simple. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He does not fix the situation in that hallway. The promotion is still gone, but something inside him shifts. He stops asking why this happened to him. He starts asking what he is going to do next. By the time he walks back to his desk, he is not the same man who walked out 10 minutes earlier. That is the whole method, hiding inside one small pause. The man who wrote that line was Marcus Aurelius. He was not a monk. He was not a man with an easy life. He ran Rome during plague, war, and betrayal from people he trusted. Every single night, by candlelight, he wrote to himself. Not to publish it, not for followers, just to remind himself, again and again, that his mind was the one thing in his life he could still command, even when nothing else could be controlled. That is lesson number 1. Awareness before reaction. Most men live their entire lives skipping this step completely. Something happens, and within a second, they are already angry, already hurt, already convinced of the worst. The gap between the event and the reaction disappears. Marcus Aurelius spent his whole life protecting that gap like it was the most valuable thing he owned, because it was. Here is something uncomfortable. If you cannot find that gap, you are not really making decisions. You are just reacting on repeat, the same way you did last year and the year before that. And you will keep calling it your personality, when really, it is just a habit nobody ever questioned. Picture a man stuck in traffic, on his way to a meeting that matters. The car in front of him is slow. He is already late. Within seconds, his jaw is tight. His hands are gripping the wheel, and his whole mood for the meeting is already ruined before he has even parked the car. Nothing about the traffic changed because he got angry. The only thing that changed was him. He walked into that meeting already defeated by a red light. Now picture the same man, same traffic, same red light, but this time he catches the gap. He notices the tightness in his jaw before it takes over. He takes one slow breath and reminds himself that his mood is not the traffic's decision to make. He still arrives a few minutes late, but he walks in steady instead of rattled. That is the difference between a man who commands his day and a man who spends it reacting to whatever gets in his way first. Lesson number 2 is emotional control, and this one gets misunderstood constantly. People hear emotional control and think it means shutting your feelings off completely, becoming cold, becoming numb. That is not what this is. A man who feels nothing is not disciplined. He is just closed off. Epictetus, a man who spent part of his life as a slave before he became one of the most respected teachers in Rome, taught something far more useful. He said people are not disturbed by what happens to them. They are disturbed by the story they tell about what happens to them. Feel the anger, feel the disappointment. That part is human, and trying to erase it will only make it louder. But do not let the first version of the story be the final version. Question it before you build your whole day on top of it. Think about the last time someone left you on red for hours. Your mind probably built a whole case against them in that silence. They are ignoring you. They do not respect your time. Maybe they are talking badly about you right now. And then, hours later, the truth arrives. Their phone died, or they were in a meeting, or nothing was wrong at all. The story your mind built cost you an entire afternoon of peace over nothing. That is the price of skipping the pause, and most men pay it every single day without noticing. Let me give you a short story, because this one matters. A man named Daniel used to check his phone the second he woke up. Every morning, before his feet even hit the floor, he was already reading messages from his boss, scrolling news that made him angry, and comparing his life to men online who looked like they had it easier. By the time he got out of bed, his whole day was already decided, and it was decided badly. One morning, an old co-worker sent him a single line from Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Daniel almost scrolled past it like everything else. But something about it stopped him. The next morning, he tried something small. Before checking his phone, he sat on the edge of his bed for 60 seconds, just breathing, just noticing his own thoughts without grabbing onto any of them. It felt strange. It felt like nothing was happening. The first few mornings, his mind kept reaching for the phone out of habit, like a hand reaching for a light switch in a dark room. He let it reach, and he let it wait. By the end of the first week, the 60 seconds felt less strange. By the end of the second week, it felt necessary, the same way brushing his teeth felt necessary. Something had changed. He was not reacting to his phone anymore. He was choosing when to look at it. The messages were the same. The news was the same. His boss was the same. But Daniel was not the same man reading them. That 60 seconds became the one part of his day nothing else could touch, and slowly it started spreading into the rest of his day too. Conversations that used to set him off barely moved him anymore. He had built a gap, and the gap was starting to protect more than just his mornings. That is the power of the pause. It costs you almost nothing, and it changes almost everything. Lesson number 3 is discipline, and this is where most men quit before they even start. Discipline is not about big dramatic changes. It is about small, boring choices, repeated so many times that they stop feeling like choices at all. Getting up when the alarm goes off instead of negotiating with yourself. Finishing the hard conversation instead of avoiding it for another week. Choosing silence instead of a comment you will regret. Seneca wrote to a friend once about how most men live like they have forever, wasting entire days on things that mean nothing, while the days that actually matter slip by unnoticed. He was not talking about death to scare anyone. He was talking about attention, about how easily a life gets spent on distraction instead of purpose, one small wasted hour at a time. Here is the uncomfortable part most men watching this will ignore. You already know which habit is holding you back. You knew before this video started. The question was never information. You have had the information for years. The question is whether you are willing to repeat the boring choice long enough for it to change who you are. Discipline never looks impressive while it is happening. It looks like a man closing his laptop instead of scrolling for another hour. It looks like a hard email sent instead of postponed. It looks like going to bed on time when nobody would even notice if he stayed up. None of these moments make it into a highlight reel, but string enough of them together, and a year later, people call the result talent, or luck, or good timing. They rarely see the 1,000 small, boring choices that actually built it. Lesson number 4 is boundaries, and this is the one I promised you earlier. Because this is where emotional control turns into real strength in front of other people, not just inside your own head. Most men either explode when someone disrespects them, or they swallow it and say nothing, then replay it in their head for a week straight. Neither one is strength. Both are still reaction, just wearing different clothes. A boundary is different. A boundary is calm. It does not need volume. It does not need revenge. It simply states what you will allow near you and what you will not, without asking anyone for permission first. Marcus Aurelius was surrounded by people who lied to him, flattered him, and worked against him behind closed doors every single day of his rule. He did not waste his energy hating them. He simply decided how close he would let them get, and he protected that line without apology. That is what real boundaries look like. Not anger, not silence, just a clear line, held without needing to explain it to anyone. Say a coworker makes a joke at your expense in front of the whole office. The old version of you either laughs along while it eats at you for the rest of the day, or snaps back hard enough to make things worse. The disciplined version does neither. He looks the coworker in the eye, says one calm sentence making clear that will not happen again, and moves on with his day like nothing shook him. No shouting, no grudge carried home, just a line, drawn once, and rarely tested twice. Lesson number 5 is self-respect, and this one hides inside all the others without most people noticing it. Every time you protect the pause instead of reacting, every time you choose the boundary instead of the outburst or the silence, you are sending yourself a message. You are telling yourself that your peace is worth protecting. That message adds up. Over months, it becomes something you can actually feel. It becomes the quiet confidence of a man who is no longer at the mercy of every small thing that happens to him. You can see this shift most clearly in how a man starts treating himself when nobody is watching. He stops calling himself weak for feeling something hard. He stops replaying every mistake like it defines him forever. He starts talking to himself the way he would talk to a friend he actually respects, instead of the way he used to talk to himself in the worst moments of his life. That single change, alone, is enough to make the rest of these lessons stick. Lesson number 6 is mental toughness, and here is where most self-help content gets it completely backwards. They treat toughness like something loud, like grinding through pain with your teeth clenched, forcing yourself through by sheer will alone. Real toughness is quieter than that. It looks like a man who takes a hit, a real one, and does not need to tell anyone about it to prove he can handle it. Epictetus lost the full use of his leg, most likely from years of abuse before he gained his freedom. He did not build his entire philosophy around that pain. He built it around the one thing that pain could never touch: his judgment, his ability to choose how he interpreted what happened to him. That is the real definition of toughness, not the absence of hard things. The refusal to let hard things decide who you are. Think about the men you actually respect in your own life. Chances are, it is not the loudest one. It is the one who took a real loss, a job, a relationship, bad news from a doctor, and did not fall apart in front of everyone. He was not pretending it did not hurt. He simply refused to let the hurt run the rest of his life. That refusal is not something he was born with. It is something he built, one hard moment at a time, the same way you are building it right now just by watching this. Lesson number 7 is purpose, and this is the one that ties every other lesson together. A man without purpose reacts to everything, because he has nothing steady to return to. A man with purpose can absorb almost anything, because he always has somewhere to come back to when the noise gets loud. Marcus Aurelius did not write to himself every night because he had free time. He wrote because remembering his purpose was the one thing that kept him steady while an empire pulled at him from every direction. Purpose is not a poster on your wall. It is the quiet reason you keep choosing discipline on the days when nobody would notice if you quit. Here is the truth underneath everything you just heard. Your mind is not your enemy. It never was. It is simply loud, because for years, nobody ever taught it to wait. Every method in this video comes down to one small habit: the pause. The half second between what happens to you and what you decide it means. That half second is the only real power any man has ever had. Not control over other people, not control over outcomes. Control over the one thing that decides how every single event in your life actually feels. The man you were yesterday reacted first and thought later. The man you are becoming pauses first and lets the reaction earn its place, if it deserves one at all. That shift will not happen because you watched one video. It will happen because tomorrow morning, before you reach for your phone, you remember this exact moment, and you choose the pause instead of the reaction, one more time than you did yesterday. Marcus Aurelius never once said his life was easy. He said the mind that adapts and reshapes itself around whatever happens will always find its footing. Your circumstances are not asking your permission to change, but your mind is still yours to command, starting with the next thought you have after this video ends. You do not need a perfect morning routine to start this. You do not need a retreat or a new job or a completely different life. You need one pause, one moment where the old version of you would have reacted, and instead you wait. You watch the thought arrive, and you decide, calmly, whether it deserves your energy at all. Do that once tomorrow, and it means very little on its own. Do it every day for a month, and you will not recognize the man reacting to your life 6 months from now, because he will not be reacting anymore. He will be choosing. That is the entire difference between a man ruled by his own mind and a man who finally learned to rule it. If you are ready to stop reacting and start ruling your own mind, type command in the comments right now. Let me know you are still here, and let me know you are ready to protect the pause, starting today.